Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Adobe Creative Educator live stream series. My name is Clara Galán, and I manage our educator community programs here at Adobe, and I'm a former middle school teacher. And today we have a very important topic that we're going to be sharing on today's live stream. I'm joined here by Natasha and Felisa from Atlanta Public Schools, and we'll be talking about equity in distance learning as many of us are approaching new virtual environments. And I'm joined here by my partner in crime, Tanya. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. As you may or may not know, I'm Tanya Avrith, and I work with Clara on the education community / evangelism team, and I work as the education evangelist here at Adobe. So thank you for being here. I want to just start off by thanking all of you who are watching live for joining us today. I want you to feel free to be part of the conversation and to also continue the conversation. So in the live comments, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from today. Let us know what you teach or what you might want to get out of today's session so we can have some questions that we can field as we're speaking today to these our awesome presenter friends who are, I'm so excited because these are two of my friends who are also co-authors with myself. We all just published a book together, the Microsoft Infused Classroom. And I actually had done an interview with my other co-author, Holly Clark, and they were talking about the work that they were doing at Atlanta Public Schools. And we were so blown away by how they just kind of like rose and like took care of their kids, and we wanted to share with everyone like their lessons learned. So I would love to just kind of kick it off and ask you, like, what are some of the, well, actually before I even kick it off, like, why don't you introduce yourselves? Like, go ahead. I'd love to hear a little bit from you.
You want to start, Felisa?
Okay. Hi, I'm Felisa Ford. I'm a digital learning specialist in Atlanta Public Schools in the Office of Instructional Technology. And I am an educator for over 27 years, a former social studies teacher, former high school administrator, and now I'm working with technology in my district.
And I'm Natasha Rachel. I am also a digital learning specialist. So there's 4 that do what we do. I'm science. Felisa, I keep pointing this way. I guess I should be going that way. Felisa is social studies. And then we have a language arts and a math. And been in education. I'm a second career educator. So alternatively certified, which if you are alternatively certified, hats off to you. We're in the same club. Been in education almost 17 years and started off as a high school science teacher and have merged through professional learning on my way to instructional technology. Best job ever.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing that background. And you have so much expertise, and we're excited to learn from you. I know a couple more people are joining in the chat. So hi to Holly. I know, Tanya, you just mentioned her earlier. And we have Margot joining us and Thomas. So nice to see you.
And Mark, hey, Mark.
And Mark, hey, that's good. But, you know, as we're getting started, Natasha and Felisa, this is a difficult time for everyone as you're transitioning a lot of your work to at home and also working with your own families. How has that been just in that transition of supporting faculty members and students in a at-home environment?
It's definitely been a transition. I think all of us, before you actually work from home, everyone is like, oh, I would love to work from home. And I think all of us that are now forced to do that are like, we can't wait to get back to work. So being at home and working from home, and I think all of us are playing homeschool parents as well. It's definitely been a huge adjustment, but still just maintaining your schedule and just being organized, I think, has been really key for me, and keeping my son on a schedule and making sure he's doing what he needs to do, but trying to maintain as much normalcy as possible in this time of unnormalcy for us.
Yeah, I think the same thing for me, just trying to maintain a schedule every day, a routine every day for my kids and I, just actually getting up physically, going to a different location in the house, so that lets us know that we're actually beginning the day. One thing I found very difficult for me is having a balance of when to actually end the day. I found that my day continues well into the evening, which it hasn't before, and that I'm still working at 7:30. So And that was like the first 3 weeks that we were out. So just now trying to find a routine that truly works, because I can't keep up that pace. So just trying to find a balance.
I think it comes with the territory right now, just because what we're doing is so high in demand. There's no question that this is definitely like being on the front line, trying to get things going. And with that being said, I would love to learn a little bit more about some of the most common issues that you're seeing, like facing your district, and wondering, like, are you seeing those same issues nationwide? So can you kind of shed some light in terms of what you've been noticing?
So definitely for us, one thing that we noticed when we first got out, but we actually noticed this issue prior to our remote learning situation, was that there was definitely a lack of consistent access for students at home. And when I say access to technology, whether it was a laptop, tablet, or Chromebook at home, and or Wi-Fi access. So we had done some research and found that based on what students needed at home, there was a lack of access. And this has been consistent across the nation now that school districts across the nation are being forced to work from home, have school from home. Students don't have access. So where there was basically it created a system of the haves and the have-nots when it comes to the technology. And that's impacting not just students in urban districts, but also students in rural districts just having access. And I think as educators and school districts across the nation, this is something that we're going to have to tackle once things get back to normal. We're going to make sure we're not in this situation again.
And also, just to piggyback on that, we have also found it's not just our students that don't have access. We've even had some teachers that you don't even think about that. You just assume that every grown-up has access, but we've had some teachers that have needed access as well. And so making sure that they're taken care of so they can continue to educate our students. And also, you have those homes where now you have both parents working from home. And so you might have, maybe they have 3 kids. So now you have 5 people that are trying to be on Wi-Fi all day long. And so that causes an internet clog up, if you will, as well. So making sure that everybody's able to do what they need to do.
Right. One thing that we learned about within this research, the lack of access doesn't just mean you don't have internet. It could mean that you may have low internet, dial-up internet, because some of us are just accustomed to having large Wi-Fi bandwidth, quick access. But when you have multiple students in a home now, we're pulling from that bandwidth, or even if you just have one device and you have 2 or 3 students trying to share that one device, then you really don't have reliable access. So we're trying to address that issue to make sure students have true access to high-speed internet and or a device.
Yeah, that's such an important part of the conversation that I think is missing so much too, because we're sharing all these practices for distance learning and how to reach your students on Zoom and how to have synchronous and asynchronous classroom time. But if students don't even have access to Wi-Fi, or you're sharing a device with multiple family members, that's where we have to start first. And so really appreciate you sharing your expertise on that. But thinking through some of these issues, what are some of the steps or programs that you implemented at Atlanta Public Schools even before this pandemic started, and how has that shifted since we've moved to fully at-home environments?
So for us, we had, like you said, we had already started down this path because we were transitioning to 21st century learning environments at our schools, and with that, we wanted to make sure our students had the skills for 21st century learning. And with that, they needed to have access to technology, not just at school, but at home. So we did research. We found grants for our companies that could actually help us provide this access. And what we found within that was a lot of the mobile companies or carriers, they do have grants out there that are targeted for school districts. 2 in particular that we've worked with was the Sprint 1 Million Foundation, which is now changed to the 1 Million Project. We worked with them for our high school students, but we also worked with T-Mobile's Empowered Ed program, which we target our middle school students for this. And with T-Mobile, they give 100% access, Wi-Fi and a device, or data and a device, to students in grades 9 through 12, and it's completely free. You just have, as school districts, you just have to apply for the grant, or if there's a teacher, maybe you can, as a school, you could possibly apply if your district doesn't want to apply. And then with T-Mobile, the same thing for middle school. They're focusing on elementary and middle school, but we utilize them for our middle school students. They provide credit, a $200 credit for a device. We chose a Winbook for our device, but then they provide a hotspot when needed. And so we pay for them. We pay a monthly bill for the hotspot for T-Mobile, but for Sprint, there's absolutely no bill whatsoever for these students as long as they're in high school. They have data for the 4 years that they're in high school. And once they graduate, it's very low cost data if they want to continue the service.
Wow. We've also had Wi-Fi, different companies open up Wi-Fi across the city of Atlanta. So not just for Atlanta public school students, but it kind of spans the city of Atlanta. And I believe we have 3 different companies that have opened up their Wi-Fi. So that's been a huge help as well. Even before this pandemic came around, back in 2015, we had this big ice storm come through Atlanta, not snow. So for those of you that are used to snow, go Google Atlanta ice storm 2015. We literally had like inches of ice that laid over the city of Atlanta within the span of 30 minutes to an hour and shut the city down for at least 7 to 10 days. And so we really, at that point, didn't have a plan in place to connect with our students remotely or digitally. And so once that was over, we really had to kind of get it together and say, okay, what are we going to do if this should happen again? Not expecting coronavirus to come and be the thing that we were ultimately kind of trying to prepare for. And so we put together a plan called Weatherwise, and it, at that time, focused on Google Classroom. And so all of our teachers were trained, to literally every single teacher. And we have close to 4,500 teachers, I believe, that were trained on Google Classroom to set their classrooms up and have assignments in there ready to go for their students that they could constantly update and have ready to go should something like that happen again. That has since morphed, and you have some teachers that are using Microsoft Teams and other platforms and things to make sure that they're able to remotely connect with their students should something like this happen. And we find ourselves in that very situation now.
Wow, that's amazing that you guys were so well prepared, like coming right into this. I mean, that says so much about like how what a great district you guys work for to be able to really have done a lot of the pre-work beforehand. So I just want to clarify, you guys had already done these grants, like you had already been, so you weren't like, oh my God, what do we do? You're like, okay, we're just ready to go. So
Sprint, this was year 3 for us. And this year we were actually targeting all of our 9th grade students with a hotspot and they were supposed to get a Chromebook, but, and we were actually in the process of distributing when everything was shut down. And so we really shifted, like on 2 wheels, shifted our focus. And at that point we said, okay, across the school district, which students do not have a device at home, whether you're 9th grade, whatever, K-12, who doesn't have a device? So then our information technology team, that was their focus, getting a device into the hands of every student in our district who did not have a device. So there were so many teams working on this. There was a COVID-19 task force in our district that's working on this, working on nutrition for students while they were out. And then with me working on the access, and thank goodness for Sprint, they opened their program up to K-12. When they saw the need, they opened it to K-12, which allowed us to now, any remaining hotspots we had, we were able to get those into the hands of any student, elementary, middle, or high, who still did not have access. And so we became like we were in a Sprint retail store, activating hotspots. But the first 2 weeks that we were out all day long, and with my partner in crime, Tom, we were activating hotspots. I know today, if I needed to, I could go get a job with Sprint. So we were able to do all of that remotely. And when I say we, probably in 2 days last week, we activated over 200 hotspots for students to make sure students had what they needed.
Oh, and not just, you didn't just support the students in that house. I mean, you're supporting the whole family right now, because having access to the internet at this time is so crucial. Like, have you heard any stories like of how that's impacted families? Because I think that that's really powerful to know. What are some of the things that you've noticed from families as well?
So one thing that we knew up front with these hotspots were that they could power some of them up to 15 devices. And from the very beginning of our program, we said that these were game changers for families. You know, this would allow a mom or a dad to create a resume or apply for a job. So it's not just about giving the students access, really it's about giving the whole family opportunities. And I love Sprint's theme, you know, potential is everywhere, opportunity is not. So now you're giving the opportunity to the potential. So now you're creating a success story for families, which will
absolutely,
you know, forever. So that's one great thing about these programs and these companies stepping up to support education like this.
Wow.
Comment in here too from Mr. Metzner is saying that they're in the same 1 million project in Lee County, Florida, and they're placing 3,000 hotspots. So thank you.
Amazing.
Sprint has been a very, very good partner to us. And they are, and a lot of people don't know about them, but they are available for any school district. They're out there to support. So I would definitely strongly suggest that you research, find out, apply for this program, because it is definitely a game changer for students.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm kind of curious, like, how are you also supporting teachers during this time? Like, what are some strategies that you have for the, you know, because obviously, like, for these teachers, like, this is definitely like all hands on technology, you know, integration. So what are some of the things that as a district that you've been doing to help support the teachers, and what advice might you give to perhaps other coaches or other school districts that are going through this right now?
So we have the 4 of us digital learning specialists, one for each content area. So we're able to provide kind of that content specific technology training to our teachers. And so I think that's very unique for our district. Not everybody has those 4 positions. Then we also have 16 educational technology specialists. So we call them our boots on the ground. They have between 5 to 7 schools each, and they are working with those teachers and students in those classrooms. And so one thing that we have done is all of us have a Google Meet classroom open, literally from our regular work shift. So from 8 to 4 or 7:30 to 4, or whatever your work shift is, that teachers constantly pop into throughout the day. Sometimes parents have popped in there too to get assistance, which has been interesting. But we all have our rooms open and teachers are able to kind of bounce in there. We're able to share screens back and forth and say, hey, you know, I'm having this issue. And so we share screens and we kind of work through things like that. And we've had those positions in place. And before pre-coronavirus, we would be in and out of schools working with those teachers and students, modeling lessons, or working with our teachers and co-teaching a lesson, planning lessons, that kind of thing. And then now post-coronavirus, we're able to do that virtually.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you think that'll evolve now? Like, I feel like, yeah.
I think going through this has definitely solidified the need for people in the position of ed tech specialists or digital learning specialists, because everybody is trying to figure this out for the first time. And so even like you guys at Adobe that have like totally like kind of pivoted and just amped up what you guys are doing, I think that's the reality for all of us. And I think this definitely adds value to the need to have these positions in place and more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you seeing as, oh, sorry, go ahead, Felisa.
I was going to say, I think that just speaks to the heart of, as educators, you've been in that classroom and you know that when a teacher reaches out that you've got to find the answer. If you don't know it, you've got to be there to give them what they need so that they can be successful for those students. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, making sure that our students are successful.
Totally. Yeah. What are you seeing right now as like trends around professional learning? Like, where are you seeing people perhaps getting stuck? Like, what are some of the areas that you're starting to see on your end?
I think it was eye-opening for us to see as we go out into school, especially our ed tech specialists are going out into schools and doing their trainings and their PL, that while you think everybody might be paying attention, the teacher that was in the back grading papers during the meeting or whatever, it has definitely made everybody accountable. And so you may not have listened to us during the staff meetings, but guess what? Now you're held accountable and you have to do this for your kids. And so we've really seen teachers taking accountability for their learning. I don't know about roadblocks. I'm trying to think, what do you think, Felisa?
For those teachers who weren't really comfortable with technology face-to-face, they're needing that extra support because now they don't have anyone physically there with them. So they're needing that extra support to help them get their online classroom up and running. So for us to try to provide all of the resources that they could possibly need and just also give them best practices for online classroom instruction, about limiting the amount of time, the expectation that students, no student should be in front of their computer for 5 and 6 hours a day. That's not good practice. So we try to establish good practices when we do our trainings. Last week, I just had a training with social studies teachers, K-12. So I provided best practices for teaching social studies online. Also, I provided resources for the content. Everything I tried to provide was digital content that they had access to today that they could do. And I've even reached out to some other online platforms and just ask, can you provide this for free for us for now? And you'd be surprised that they're willing if you just reach out and ask.
That's really helpful. And from an instructional standpoint, we have a question here from Chelsea. So do you have any advice in terms of like how much content to give per week for educators? I know we're all kind of figuring out pacing for now. And if you have any ideas around that, and then for resources that teachers can access directly.
I think no matter where you look, you're going to find different answers to this question. Our superintendent has said no more than 4 hours of screen time per day. There's an interesting meme or image floating around social media right now, and it's a picture. It's like a cartoon drawing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's like a family of like 5 sitting around, and on the top of it, it says something about turn in your digital homework and, you should be on screen time, but this family is living in one room. And so, that many hours of screen time might not be able to happen for those particular kids. So our superintendent has said no more than 4 hours per day. I think the younger kids, you probably want to limit it a little bit more than that. But anywhere you look, you'll find different answers to that question. And then as far as resources, oh my goodness, Google, the G Suite for Education, whatever, Microsoft and Education, tons of resources there. Flipgrid, which is part of Microsoft, Adobe, Bunsy.
If they're not sure how to do any of this, I would recommend the Microsoft Educator community, where they can take courses that teach you how to utilize some of these resources, but also get you up to speed on what you need to do. I would also suggest looking at some of the blogs for some of the content or tools that you already use. I would look at some of the education blogs that they have, because they're giving you tips. Twitter is a great resource because every day, multiple times a day, there are webinars on Twitter, Facebook. There are webinars from companies like Adobe, Microsoft, Google. There are tons of resources out there. But for those, if you have students who do not have access right now today, I would recommend that you go to your PBS, Public Broadcasting System. They're running programs throughout the day, education programs throughout the day. A lot of them are aligned to your state standards. So you can look there and see what they're offering that day and align your whatever you're teaching to that for those students who may not have a device or Wi-Fi at home. So there are multiple ways that you can still get students what they need through remote learning.
That's the image there, Clara. That's it.
Yeah, it's such a powerful image. Like, just think, and I think sometimes we are so wrapped up in figuring out pacing and the different technology that it's important to take a step back and remember every student's reality and what we're expecting of them.
And understanding the parents' current reality. I mean, we were just saying, like, I work all day and my husband is a healthcare provider, so he's still going in every day, and it's stressful for him when he comes home, and I'm trying my best to manage, and I have 2 kids that still need assistance. And so just remembering that, like, for those who are lucky even to have a job right now, And then, then to imagine the amount of stress and pressure that's happening in families right now where money is extremely tight and they're worried about where their next meal might be coming or if they're going to have enough rent money for the month. Like, we really need to understand that even with access, that doesn't mean there's equitable family support in the home. And so as educators, I think it's really important to be flexible right now. And I think that's what's happening in a lot of districts. They've canceled standardized testing, from my understanding, in most districts.
Yeah.
And now is a time to really explore creative projects, to let kids, to really allow kids to enjoy inquiry more and their interests and to learn in ways that are meaningful. And I think now more than ever is a great opportunity to try things out. Would you not agree? Like, have you seen any interesting curriculum come your way?
So I have. One thing that I would encourage teachers to do is to build some type of fun activity where students are also getting up, moving throughout the day so that they're not just in front of a device. But I would also recommend to parents maybe 30-minute increments, because that's a lot of just sitting face time for students. So get them up, moving, even with the family. Have an assignment where they're doing something creative with the family to get them involved in moving. When I say we created a video, a dance video. My son is determined to get us on TikTok. So
love it.
You probably will see me on TikTok at some point. I got to get my rhythm together, but that's it. Even to art, get them drawing something, even something about their feelings, incorporate some social emotional learning in there, because that's so important right now to make sure that our students are okay, because it's not just about the content. We're still teaching the whole time. We want them to be well, so we got to keep that take that into consideration also.
I've seen some of my friends on Facebook post pictures of their kid from behind, and they're on Gonoodle and they're getting their energy out, which is so cute.
Yeah.
And then just kind of going back to the inquiry piece, Trevor McKenzie, our friend Trevor, is that's his jam. And so he's got tons of resources just on diving into inquiry and really having kids think and ponder and wonder. I've also seen parents do flip hunts with their kids, or teachers even do flip hunts with their kids through Flipgrid, where they're saying, okay, go find something with wheels, go run and bring it back. And the kids take off running and come back with their little Hot Wheel cars and things like that. So there's tons of resources that are out there, just like Felisa said, to get your kids moving and going. I mean, have recess and PE. And I mean, I know we have to be social distancing, but get some fresh air, unless you're in Georgia dealing with this pollen right now. But
trust me, I thought yesterday I had coronavirus. Not doing well.
So funny, our first week out, when I say my son was determined to have his school day, every 45 minutes he was telling me, okay, so now we're at specials. I'm supposed to be doing art now. So then now, this was 10:45. I have lunch now. I said, look, this is not happening. I'm sorry, but you might as well. That's a thing of the past. You're not going to get it like this.
I know. No, those are really helpful, and just to keep moving and make sure that we're having those transitions throughout the day. We have one more question from a Facebook user that's joining us from Stanford. Asks, do you have any tips for leaders looking to support and celebrate their teachers?
I just put together, just published a blog with EdTech team, I think about 2 weeks ago, but it was about this exact topic. And the number one thing I would say is give your teachers grace. Everybody is trying to figure this out for the first time, from your administrators to your teachers, to your students and parents. So give your teachers grace. The other thing I would suggest is they have to be held accountable, right? Like, everybody's still getting a paycheck to teach, so you have to hold them accountable, but find creative ways to do it. Like, maybe have them do a daily check-in through Flipgrid or whatever. That way you're still able to keep your finger on the pulse of how they're feeling and what's going on with them, because SEL is not just important for your kids, it's important for your teachers and you as a leader as well. What else? There are tons of like inspirational videos that you can put out. I actually have a list of videos. Maybe I can share it with you guys later to put out of YouTube videos that are inspirational leadership videos that leaders can share out to their teachers. And it's like pages long. It's not my list. I found it from someone on Twitter that I credit on the list. But just finding creative ways to support them and give them grace. That's the number one thing I can say.
I love that.
Another resource for leaders that I would suggest, Microsoft has a playbook for leaders that will kind of give you guidance, especially on how you can support your teachers with using the technology, and just, especially now, I think that's real important, or what you can do as a leader. But like Natasha said, I would just encourage you to just be a cheerleader for them now, because that's what they really need. So do something fun to let them know that you're in this with them, that you're human just like them. So, even if you're in Flipgrid, your sticker or your picture, just have something every day, or something of the week, maybe a person of the week for whatever it is, something that's silly or funny, but where it's showing support for what they're doing.
My son's principal at his school, they had all the teachers, I guess they were on either Google Meet or Zoom. I couldn't figure out which one it was, but it was, I don't know how many of them that were on there, because they kept flashing in and out as they were singing, but they were singing all of these like hip hop songs and fun pop songs. And my son got the biggest kick out of it. But I thought it was so cool for the principal to say, hey, we're going to come together. We're going to do something fun for our students. And they emailed it to all the students and parents. And it was just a fun thing. And you could tell the teachers really enjoyed it, because they were like all into it with props and stuff. It was really cool.
Oh, I love that.
I was gonna say, let Twitter be your best friend. If you're not on Twitter, you can find so many good ideas on Twitter.
Yeah.
Hashtag remote learning. You will find everything you need and more.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of Twitter, Natasha and Felisa, what are the best ways for those who might have further questions? Is Twitter the best way to get in touch with you with your Twitter handles there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to meet with us today. I know there's a ton going on as we're continuing to navigate this new virtual environment. I wanted to share the blog post that just went live earlier today that has a Q&A with both Natasha and Felisa, talking about equity and distance learning and how they've approached it previous to this pandemic, and some grants that you can check out in addition to resources for educators highlighted here below. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back here next week. So Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. And next week, we're going to have Rebecca Hare on, who is going to be sharing how to create optimal learning spaces when teaching in a virtual environment, and how to facilitate creativity online. So looking forward to that conversation. Great. Well, thanks everybody again. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Natasha. Thanks, Felisa.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. Click the link in the description below to explore more free online professional development, and click the link on screen to subscribe to the channel for more videos.